Very good. As mentioned earlier, we're going to try something new today. We're going to have a guest speaker. I'll allow her to introduce herself here shortly. Before we get to her, though, I want to let y'all know, whenever we have this many new people, what I like to do is to stick around later. So once the meeting is officially over, I'll stick around longer so that any of you who have any questions or would like to make any comments or things like that, you can stick around and you can do so afterwards. For right now, though, we have the guest speaker today. As I mentioned, Meda is one of the few African-American Buddhists that I know. And so as such, she has a unique perspective. Do want to let you know that she does not speak for all African-Americans, nor does she speak for all African-American women. She only speaks for her own experience. And so this is one of millions of perspectives on this issue. And so we thank you very much for putting yourself out there today to talk about this. Meda, before we get started, do you want me to give you the questions as we go along, or do you want, how do you want to proceed?
Yes, you can give me the questions as we go along. You know how I kind of talk and can go way off topic. So okay. We can, that way maybe you can rein me in.
Sure. Do you want to start us off then by talking about Ananda and who he is and why he's so important?
Yes, I think just so I think one of the things that we had discussed about this is that there really isn't any bad Buddhists. We all have kind of different stages and different paths and that we find ourselves in, and we shouldn't be hard on ourselves about those stages that we are in. One of them, the people that or stories that I liked reading was about Ananda, who was a very important figure in Buddhism. He was an attendant of the Buddha. And even he kind of strayed from his path a little bit. He had guidance to bring him back, but here's somebody who had been practicing for a good time when this kind of incident happened that caused him to stray. There were like, oh, you did such a horrible thing. There was none of that. There was none of this, oh, you did such a horrible thing. We can't believe that you lost your way. We had none of that happen. It was more of either the Buddha or he sent somebody, in some stories it's Manjushri, to bring Ananda back into the fold and back into the path. And he did eventually find enlightenment, even with, you know, the bumps along the road. He fell in love with somebody, and then it turned out that that person even came into Buddhism and became a nun. So I think it's, I think if we get trapped by the idea of, oh, we've made this horrible mistake, which tends to happen to, I think, a lot of people. I'm hard on myself. I know other people are hard on themselves. We feel like, oh, we're now just a terrible Buddhist. I can't believe we failed. I can't get this meditation down. All of those things are not something that Buddhists tend to do, because we understand that everybody has their own points and situations and moments in their lives where they're going to stray a little bit from the path. But all of that actually is part of our path. It's part of our growth. It's part of our learning. So we should never feel, I guess, down on ourselves about it, or feel like we've been slipping up. That's just not how it is, and I think in our particular religion.
Good, that's right. So Buddhism isn't about, you know, you must be perfect or else you're damned.
Right.
It's a respect of where you are at right now in your life and moving forward with that. And so Meda, where are you at in your life right now? What do you find are some of the biggest struggles for you now, given the racial tension in the United States?
For me right now, I think as everybody can see, I'm what is considered a very light-skinned Black. I'm actually biracial, but the generation that I come from, we didn't have that terminology. I'm a much older, I guess, person. So our terminology, we were Black because we knew that that's how society would look at us. We are Black individuals, we are African American, but again, I come from an older generation, so we were Black. And it is difficult to be at a time where at the beginning there was nobody like me. There was just me and my sister. I lived in Chicago and I still never came across anybody liked me. Uh, um, we um, we were born not that very far after the case of Loving. So, you know, it wasn't that long before 16 states still said that my parents' marriage was illegal. Um, and now I'm in this kind of this weird position to where I was treated in a way of not being good enough because I wasn't all the way Black to back to being not very treated very well or good enough because they don't look at me fully as Black, or that I have the same types of Black experiences because now it's called colorism, and when I was growing up it was the brown paper bag test. So you know, it's a hard position because I've never ever been fully accepted in this country, and so and that on top of you know, people, well, you have now light skin privilege, and I was like, I don't know what you all are talking about on light skin privilege. That in and of itself, that I've been put into this bucket kind of shows that we haven't really moved very far from when I was growing up. And so being in this country, not being a person, just a person. And I have traveled lots of different places. So the feeling of just being a person is so different. It's hard to describe because you don't have that here.
And then
And
on top of that, you're Buddhist.
yes.
So
on top of that, I'm Buddhist. So I'm
which is
definitely
not
far from the stray.
yeah, which is not typical in the African American community, and so that sets you apart even more. But you also mentioned, you brought up Ananda for a reason. You said, you know, there are times in your life when you feel like you're not being a good Buddhist. And so you want to talk a little bit about that. What's that been like for you lately?
So I guess there's a couple of things. When you're a Buddhist, you're not supposed to have attachments. And I know one of the attachments for me is I would actually like to find love one day. I haven't had the privilege of finding, you know, what I would consider kind of a real kind of love. And I've seen other people, I saw my parents, I saw how much that brought them joy, and I guess that part of that attachment is what Ananda went through, which was to find somebody that they truly loved. So that, I think, is one of the things that would make it hard for me to, you know, continue my path, even if I guess one of the paths is that they want me to become a nun. So I have to expand on that. They want me to become a nun. So as you all can see, I love my hair. For Black people, our hair is a very important part of our culture. It's a very important part of our being. My grandmother said, you know, this is your crowning glory is your hair. So I love my hair. I'm not sure if I want to cut it all off yet and do that. Another big issue is the idea of enlightenment in and of itself. Do I want to become enlightened yet? I understand that with life and the cycle of death and rebirth comes suffering, but there's also a lot of wonderful things that are a part of life that I'm not sure if I'm ready to get out of that cycle of, to get out of, to become that enlightened person. At this moment, I don't feel that I do want to, or that I am ready for that part of the Buddhist path.
So does that make you a lousy Buddhist?
Um, I don't think so. Like I said, we all have our stages, you know, that we want to grow. It's like, you know, just because at this moment I'm not ready doesn't mean that 5 years from now I could be. 2 years from now I could be. 20 years from now I could be. So it is it's all, I think it's all part of that growth, all part of that learning, all part of that path that we all have to take. And knowing, I was like, knowing who yourself is and the questions that you ask yourself are a very important part of that step. So if you can realize within yourself that you are not ready, but be accepting of that fact, but then realize maybe later on you could be. I don't think that those things make you a lousy Buddhist. I think that they make you a Buddhist in practice.
Very good. So based on your understanding of Buddhism, what do you think would be the healthy Buddhist response to the current stressors, especially regarding, I'll leave it at that, the current stressors? What are a good, healthy Buddhist response?
It was interesting that you mentioned the mindfulness and meditation. I think meditation is a very big part of how we can help ourselves kind of relieve our stresses throughout the day. But lately for me, it's been mindfulness. It's been, because you're right, we kind of stress about the past. If only I had done this at this point in time. And we stress about the future. What am I going to continue to do for me with my life? You know, my children are grown, and now I have to decide on the new path that I'm going to take for myself. But mindfulness kind of brings you back into your existence, I would say. For me, I when I practice mindfulness, I was saying I like to kind of sit and be with my hibiscus. They're my favorite flowers. I love them. I like to look at them. I like to kind of look and see. Oh, I have, you know, something going on right here. I have 7 of them that I take very, very good care of. Now they have their own little ecosystem. So I have a gecko that lives in my hibiscus, and I have this grasshopper who hasn't gone away. He just likes to eat my hibiscus. I have lots of little aphids that we can't kill them. So I kind of take the bud and I'll nip off the bud and then I'll put them someplace else so they're no longer messing with my hibiscus, but they still have something to eat in the meantime. So all of those things make you focus on what are you doing at the moment? What am I looking at when I'm looking at my plants? What am I looking for? Are they lacking something? So I'm looking at their leaves. Are they, I'm looking at how many buds there are. Are there too many? So it kind of brings you into this kind of meditative but mindful state because you are focused on the task at hand. And sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes if it's like, for some people it's cleaning. They're focusing on the task at hand. They're not wondering, oh, what am I going to do tomorrow? For me, I'm not that kind of person. I start cleaning and then all of a sudden I have squirrel moments. So I'm like, oh, squirrel, I need to go and do this. So, oh, squirrel, I need to go over here and do this. So cleaning is not that thing for me. But for me, it is just kind of sitting there, taking care of my hibiscus and just being in the moment of what it's, what it's like to just kind of be here and now.
Now you
And
mentioned
we
that.
kind of, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
No, this is your show. Go for it.
I was like, we kind of, that feeling of being present in the moment is not actually all that common because throughout the day, we're always thinking about something else. Even when we're at work, we're always thinking about the next task that we have to accomplish. So the being in the moment is not actually, it's something that we do have to practice. It's not something that is at least for me, and I would think for a lot of other people, it is not something that is consistent in our daily lives.
You mentioned earlier that it's been rather hard lately with a lot of the events lately. And you and I have spoken on this already, and you wanted to touch a bit upon this. It's just sort of you're starting to make some plans.
Yes,
Plans.
I have decided I'm pretty sure I would like to leave the country for a while. I'm not, I don't think that I can continue to be here, especially with the events of Trump's election and what has happened afterwards. We knew that they were always here. We knew that these people were always here. We knew, you know, of course, I've always had my experiences. Every other Black person in this country has always had our experiences. It wasn't until recently that we're starting to record these experiences that I think that we have been believed. I mean, from music to poetry, James Baldwin being one of my favorite authors, we've been telling you all this for the longest time, and it fell on deaf ears. And even when Colin Kaepernick took a knee, he was just trying to bring attention to what happened, but the types of reactions that he got was completely, it wasn't like we didn't know that that was going to be the reactions. It really wasn't, but you would think at a certain point that we would have at least kind of grown a little bit, but I don't think that's the truth. I have family who voted for Trump and will still vote for Trump. I have, I know people down the street, you know, that are, you know, Trump supporters, and just, I've come across, you know, several racists, of course. You know, I was recently told, I look as Black, somebody said he knew Norwegians who were Blacker than I was. And these types of statements, these continuous types of things, have, I think, weighed on me. And my mom, when Trump got elected, she was one of those people who said, I'm leaving the country, and she did. And she went to Paris. And Paris has its issues, but she said, in Paris, I'm a person. In Paris, I don't have to worry about that, the looking over my shoulder on a consistent basis. I mean, all of us, I think, who are African Americans have had instances with police where you're just scared half out of your minds. I mean, for me, I got boxed in by 7 police officers, guns drawn, and that was one of the scary. So when we get pulled over, we're not thinking about, oh, what are they going to get us for? We're thinking, am I going to survive this incident? And it's always been like that. I mean, my son was looking for his keys in a parking lot, and somebody called the police on him and said that he was breaking and entering into vehicles. And they called several police officers on him. And it took his friend, who was there also helping, who they didn't call on, to walk over and say, hey, we're just looking for his keys. He lost his keys. We can't find them. So, you know, and it still took 30 minutes. You know, and so these are the kinds of things that happen consistently, and I think that I'm just kind of tired. I don't have what is it, something in the game, I can't remember the terminology. I don't have a hat in the game, or I don't have something, I can't remember, but I don't have a stake in the game. Yeah.
So, and I've asked you this before, so so we're repeating questions. This is a question that's not a surprise to me, so they can be it's worded kind of harsh. Is you leaving, you're running away?
I actually did think about that, and in a sense it actually is, but just because you're running away at the moment doesn't mean you don't get to come back. So for me, for my sanity, for my well-being, for my center, because I'm so angry right now at this situation, I'm so almost paralyzed with the fact that there is really nothing I can do to change people's minds, to make them see the you know, when I say Black Lives Matter and they come back with All Lives Matter, they have no idea just how insensitive and kind of, you know, racist, or that inherently is. Just like Make America Great Again was. Who are you all making America great for? It wasn't great for a whole lot of us. You know, I can attest to that. And so So who are you all including in this Make America Great Again? What time are you all trying to go back to that you thought it was so great? And who are you just, intending to take back to that point, And then when you point these kinds of things out and they say, well, why are you even here? And I'm now to this point, I'm like, I have no idea why I'm here. You are absolutely correct. I don't know why I'm here. So I think for me, maybe being able to leave and find center and come back and be balanced and not be an angry Buddhist. I don't want to be an angry Buddhist. That's not what we're supposed to be. And just for, I guess, for my sanity and to find myself again and to just go someplace and just, I guess, breathe.
And we talked about this being a sort of a retreat, the same way that the Buddha retreated into the jungles, in the same way that Muhammad retreated to the mountain, Moses retreated into Sinai, and Jesus retreated into gardens to meditate, to sort of recharge. And so my final question then is, how do you think your Buddhist practice is going to help you during this retreat, during this time of sort of self-focus?
That could be a little bit harder of a question because you never know if where you're going to go is actually going to be the answer for what you're looking for. For me, I'm hoping that it allows me to get away from everything that is causing me such anxiety and angst and anger and sorrow. To get away from the fact that, the neighbor right next door is somebody who I don't feel like I can be friends or talk to. I'm isolated even within my own home because I don't feel safe just walking around neighborhoods. I don't know all of my neighbors because, in my neighborhood down my street, there's only 2 Black people, two Black families. So we're isolated in a way that is not understandable to a lot of people. And so it would just be nice to get away from what this country identifies me as and be able to focus on who I find myself to be or who I want to be or who I'm continuously trying to strive to be. That isn't so focused on my situation or my position or my racial identity in this country.
Thank you. Thank you, Mita, for sharing that perspective, some really direct truths, direct experiences to some of the that's going on right now in the country. Everyone else, I think Mita's showing us a really great example of the importance of taking time for yourself, of removing yourself from the noise, from the anxiety, from the anger, from the sorrow, even if just temporarily, so that you can recharge, refocus, reevaluate, apply your values, refresh your values, energize those values, so that if and when you come back to your situation, you have a better chance of not falling into the same suffering routines, same cycles of suffering.
Exactly, yes.
Mita, any last words? Any last words you want to leave us with before we end today?
I think kind of knowing yourself and being aware of your sentiments and being aware of your pitfalls, being aware of what causes, I guess, all of these kind of burdens and all of these kinds of, I guess, issues and struggles within yourself is kind of like that first step into being able to release them eventually and to be able to continue on your path forward and to be able to decide as a Buddhist what is our next step, because it's a very long path. There's no shortcuts to it, and it's long and it's windy and it's you know, it's ever changing, and what you feel like is your way right now cannot be your way a little bit down the road. And there's nothing wrong with that, I think.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you very much. We don't have much time left. So if anyone has any really burning questions they want to ask Mita, now is your chance. Otherwise.
I have a question. Hi, Mita. So my question is this. You know, we're all thinking about all this after going through George Floyd and all the protests and everything being brought to the forefront of our minds. You know, many of us are sympathetic and do care. My question is this: in terms of good speech or an action, let's say I'm in the HEB line, okay, and I'm behind a young black man or a black woman or a black family. Is there an appropriate thing? Because I think about it in my mind and I go, well, I don't want to come off as, you know, pretentious or showboating. Is it best to just smile and just treat them like you would say hi to any other person? Or is there something that I could go a little farther than that and say to them to let them know that, you know what, I care about this too?
It's very interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting in stores, because, you know, we're all hiding in stores. we kind of feel like, okay, they're looking at us in particular.
Yeah, sure.
An experience of being followed in a store. Because,
you're on a stage almost, right?
Here. Yeah, so just having, I think, just a conversation. But one thing is what I find is incredibly important. If you see something happening, say something.
Yes.
Because there was an experience with Leona Lewis, and she's in London. She's a singer. I don't know if a lot of people know that. But she was in a store, and the woman started following her around, and eventually started telling her and her father to start putting stuff back, because she didn't realize who this person was. But she shouldn't even have to have been famous in order for her to be treated with respect. Everybody in the store left them. They were all disgusted. This was horrible. We can't believe it's happening, but they left them. They didn't say anything. They didn't stick up for them. They didn't say, hey, you know, what you are doing is inherently wrong. And I find that happens more often than not. You know, I had an instance in Disney World where I saw a man kick his wife. And I looked around and people started leaving. And I said, how could you all possibly leave that situation? I did not leave. It turned into a really big deal when I stepped in. But I just didn't, made me even angrier that the people left. Nobody stuck up for this woman because they are not interested in, I didn't want to get involved. Or I don't, you know, but I think as Buddhists ourselves, it is our duty to also protect. And it's also our duty to keep other people safe. We're supposed to keep ourselves safe, yes, but it's also our duty, if we see something wrong, to say something. And just having a pleasant conversation with a family in the line does a lot to ease the tensions that they could be feeling.
That's really where I'm going with that. Because
I'd like to chime in. This is Min.
Sure, Min.
Hi, I'm glad that you brought that up, Leon, because I think about that a lot too. I recently saw, I think it was on Facebook, but I saw something where it's kind of the situation like with you, Mita, that there were two sisters in a grocery store, and one of them was very light-skinned and a lot of times mistaken for just a white person, and the other one was much darker, and they were shopping at a grocery store, and the darker black sister was second in line, and the first lady, you know, got her groceries and paid with a check, and the cashier said, okay, sure, you know, thanks, took the check, no big deal. And she stood aside waiting for her sister. The sister got her groceries and also paid with the check. And this is the darker skinned one. And the cashier said, I'm going to have to see 2 forms of ID, please. And she said, oh, okay, you know, that's fine. She gets out the 2 forms of ID. And then the cashier opens up a a book of all the people that have written hot checks. You know, look out for these people. And so she takes her ID and she makes sure that she's not in that book. And she said, and the darker black lady said, you know, I could have said something like, what are you doing? Is it because I'm dark or whatever? But she said that it was really helpful that the lady behind them was an older white lady. And that older white lady stood up and said, what do you think you're doing? Why are you asking her for 2 forms of ID and you're not asking this one? And she said that was really important, because if she had said something, stuck up for herself, she would come off as just an angry black woman.
Hey, the angry black woman.
Yes. Oh, you're that lady. You're the angry black person. But when the white lady stood up for her, it wasn't that she was an angry black person. It was that we all understand that this is wrong.
Yes.
And so I think what Leon, you know, what he was asking, I thought that was really important, because sometimes you see something and you don't know, do I say something? Do I not say something? Is it causing more problems if I say something? And I think absolutely you should step up and say something. Otherwise that person looks like they're the angry black person, or the angry Asian person, or angry, you know, whatever, Hispanic person. So I just thought that I'd share that story.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are running out of time here. So let me wrap up. I want to give a really heartfelt thank you to Mita. This is the first time we did this, and I think it was a wonderful success. I think it really also shows that Buddhism, despite being 2,500 years old, is still very relevant to a lot of the issues we are experiencing now. Unfortunately, these are things that have been happening for 10,000 years. You know, it's the same story, just a different place. And so, I hope the message that was most repeated today, though, was that Buddhism, unlike some other faiths that require you to be perfect, or else you're wrong or you're going to be punished, Buddhism takes the road of, this is a process, and this can take lifetimes if you believe in reincarnation. And where you're at right now is where you're at right now. And so you don't beat yourself up for not being perfect. You just accept this is what was healthy, this was unhealthy, and then hopefully next time I can make healthier choices. And you try little by little to make things better. And that's okay to not be perfect, to not be the perfect little Buddhist.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all very much. As I mentioned, I will stick around longer for anyone who wants to ask any questions, general questions about Buddhism or just about the group. Otherwise, then next week we will have another Buddhism 101 meeting. Vanessa, no, not Vanessa, I think it was someone else last week had requested a talk on interconnectedness, this idea of no self in Buddhism. And so I'm trying to think of a nice little talk and maybe talk about life and death and how life, birth and death don't exist but do exist. And so I'll explain what that means next week. Otherwise, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your week. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Matt.